Mr. Kalale, are you able to see the feed?
No, on YouTube, there's nothing.
I'm sending right now. It's even showing that it's streaming.
On YouTube?
Yes.
Let me check. Okay. Okay, I've seen it.
Okay, so I'm going to give them a sign for them to stand by.
All right.
Okay, so stand by. Okay, okay, don't. Okay.
So I don't know how long it's still ready.
Okay.
But the seed has seen it. Okay.
Okay.
It is still loading.
Okay, don't cut. Hello? No, I've gotten a case. Na senda kuri Thompson kura kuba wene mpali kuri. Na iwomba, so I'm communicating na ku studio.
Okay, good.
Okay.
I like to go over no? We'll talk to Pro.
Okay, I'm talking to Felix. Wakalale.
Hello?
Yes.
Now you can, you tell me now, the video where.
Okay, so stand by. We are about to, that's why I'm telling you, I'm giving them a sign.
Okay.
Yeah, so 3, 2, 1, you are on.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, all our viewers out there. Welcome to Abn TV and to our program today, which is The Poultry Farmer. My name is Chileshe Muyana. Today, we apologize for coming a little bit late, but please to all our viewers and all our followers of this program of The Poultry Farmer, please, you maintain the time that we always come to you live at 16 hours. And today, we are coming live from PAZA, or from PAZ offices direct, where I have the director of Poultry Association of Zambia, Mr. Dominic Chanda himself, the parent himself, the servant of the people himself. Mr. Chanda, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Chileshe, and welcome viewers. I hope we are going to have an interactive discussion today.
Thank you so much. Our viewers were waiting for us at 16, and due to technicalities, we are late and we are behind.
No, what is important is that we are here.
We are here.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Chanda, today our topic, we are talking about the layers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, today our focus is going to be on the layers. And before I go in, I want to ask you the next question. What are the layers and what differentiates them from others to be layers?
Okay. Remember, Mr. Chileshe, we discussed the issues that time we were looking at which one is profitable between the layer and the broiler. And our simple definition of a layer was that this is a chicken, this is a bird that actually gives us the table eggs. The eggs that we actually buy from the market comes from this chicken, which is called a layer. And if we use science, any chicken that is able to produce an egg is called a layer. But for this particular discussion, I think we're focusing on the layers that gives us the chicken eggs that we actually buy from the market, which are called the table eggs. These are the eggs that are not fertilized. They cannot be hatched because they're not fertilized. So these are the ones that we are talking about. By nature, when you go onto the market, we don't see the good part of this type of a bait because you only see it when it has actually outlived its lifespan, and we actually buy it as an X layer. Sometimes you may be able to see it without feathers and it's bedded in and so forth.
But it's normal. It's okay.
It's normal. That is how they are. But when they are in production, you see them. They look very beautiful. Okay. So that is the one that we actually focus on. And it's important that we look at what characteristics actually composes this, and how can one be able to choose, for example, to venture into this industry and so forth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. The issue is how does someone start? But then we said let us look at the layers being gotten or be gotten into by someone like me who would want to be a poultry farm, probably, and consider the layers as the business. So we say you advise that what we should look at before going into that. When should I get them? Should I get the small chicks, or I should go at the point of lay?
Oh yeah. In fact, you've just actually highlighted very important things. There are two entry points under which a farmer can go into this industry. One of them is to buy the day-old chicks, but buying the day-old chicks also requires you to have the patience.
Okay, yes.
Because you have to wait for roughly, Mr. Chideshe, for about almost 20 weeks before they start giving you eggs.
Yes.
But it gives you also an advantage in the sense that you actually invest money slowly over a longer period of time.
Okay.
So it doesn't give you the pressure to look for example, 100,000 at a go.
Yeah.
For you to raise, for example, maybe say 1,000 layers. So that 100,000 will be actually sourced over a period of about almost 4 to 5 months, which is a good thing for those that wants to go into that. Second part is that right now, for example, if I were to order the day-old pullets, because of the demand that is there, I have to wait for about almost 3 to 4 months for me to get. So, for example, this is almost February, and I should be able to get my day-old chicks, maybe say, for example, in May, because I have to be on the queue.
Okay.
So if I have that patience to wait for 3 months plus the other 4 to 5 months for them to be in production, I literally actually take into account close to about almost 8 months of waiting. Almost 8 months of waiting, depending on the time when you actually order your day-old chicks.
That's serious investment.
That is serious investment and serious level of waiting to see a chicken actually drop an egg. If you don't have that patience to wait, you can go on to the second level, which is called the point of lay. And the point of lay, these are the chickens that have been grown by someone else. The vaccinations have been done, the debeaking has been done, and you buy them at the time when they're just about to start. And usually, most of the people that sells point of lay, they start selling at the time when they're about, in fact, not even selling, they start giving them away when they're about 17 weeks to 18 weeks.
Okay. 17 weeks, they would have been ready for dropping it.
No. 17 weeks, we've got two breeds in Zambia, Mr. Chileshe. We have the Highline from Hybrid. We also have the Roman Brown from Quantum Food. And these have got different characteristics. One is a very high, a very early maturing bed, for example, the Highline. Then you have the Roman Brown, which is a bit late by about a week. At 17 weeks, they are enough now to go to the farm. And why should they go to the farm at 17 weeks? And this is the issue, Mr. Chileshe, people should understand that the confusion that we have as human beings, for example, if I were to invite you to my house, come and spend a night, even two in my house, you will discover that the first night you will not be able to sleep. Why? Because the environment has changed.
Yeah.
You might not even be able to enjoy your meal because everything is just new.
Yes.
Yeah, so with chickens, unfortunately, it takes 2 weeks for them to acclimatize, to get used to the new environment and so forth. So by getting them at 17 weeks, you know that at least in the next 2 weeks, these chickens should have settled down and be able to produce eggs. Worse off if you take them at the time when they have started producing. Because of that confusion that goes in, you will see production actually drops, and it's true the farmer who actually suffers the consequences, because you would have lost 2 weeks of production because chickens are actually acclimatizing. And that's the reason why most of the people actually start leaving them at 17 weeks. Others will give you, will be able to give you even after you pay for about almost maybe when they're about 18 weeks, sometimes 19 weeks, depending on the client that is actually bought the chicks. You may be able to find that some would be able to pay at the time when they're 10 weeks, and they delay to collect them. They want to collect them at the time when they're actually producing. For example, the ones that we facilitated as an association about 10,000 layers that went into one of the farmers that actually bought huge quantities. He was very lucky because he got them at the time when they were about 19 weeks. By the time they were reaching the farm, I think following day he started picking eggs. So you have such. But in most cases you find that the people that produces point of lay want to give them away as early as 17 weeks. And at 17 weeks, they are actually ready to be shifted from one farm to another.
Okay.
Because at that time, all the vaccinations are done, and there's nothing that is remaining. Yeah.
But then, why focus on buying at the point of lay, especially for this small-scale farm?
Why focusing on buying the point of lay, Mr. Chideshe, is the fact that these are the chickens that requires extensive vaccinations. And much of the vaccinations are actually in above 1,000 doses. And if you are keeping a small amount of chickens, for example, if I want to raise my own, maybe say 500 or 200 from day old chicks, I will be forced to buy vaccines that are about 1,000 doses. And some of the vaccines are between 1,200 to 1,700, depending on your location, but some are cheap.
Okay.
Yeah. Secondly, also, because the vaccinations are intensive, you need sometimes a vet to come and do the vaccinations or a vet assistant. Now, if you want to involve a vet, the moment they visit your farm or your household where you're doing the backyard production, the vet have got a specific fee that have to be given onto them. For example, 500 just to visit your farm.
Yes.
And before any vaccination is done. And then you have to negotiate the vaccination per bed. So you may find that the cost of raising one chicken, because of those small costs some cost that looks very small, becomes very high, such that even if you were to compare it with you just buying a point of lay, it becomes actually much cheaper to buy the point of lay than raising your own.
Okay.
Unless you do a number that is above 1,000, then you see the cost of actually just vaccination reduces. Why? Because the cost per bed is actually shared amongst a very big number.
Okay.
So it becomes cheaper to do a bigger number than doing the smaller number.
Okay. All right. But then, in that way, for the listener or for the farmer that is listening, or that one who wants to venture, what costings do you assist as an association, as parts?
In most cases, Mr. Chideshe, we don't give financial assistance as in money.
Yes.
We give technical advice, specifically one on how to raise the chickens, how to manage them, the feeding systems. We also help with the costings to understand, if you want to go into this industry, you need to understand at what rate will I be able to break even. So we do the costings for farmers, most of the time free of charge for those that are registered.
Okay.
And for those that have not registered, first we tell them to go and register and then come and get the information. And you discover that most of the activities and most of the farmers that comes into the association, because they already do, for example, maybe the layer, they do the broilers and so forth. They're already members, so most of the services that we actually offer is free of charge.
Okay.
The technical trainings, the booklets that we have, they may be able to buy between 50 kwacha, 100 and 100 kwacha, depending on the type of booklets. If it is broiler, we sell them at 50 kwacha. The layer, we sell it at 100 kwacha. So they should be able to get that information to enable them venture into this industry.
Okay.
And the questions that you asked is, should anyone who actually wants to go into this industry focus more on the point of lay or focus on the day or chicks? I think for argument's sake, I would always advise people first to buy the point of lay. Okay. Why? Because they need to do an experiment to understand the bait. Before committing millions and millions of kwacha to buy the day or chicks, and then you grow the chicks that cannot lay eggs, it's better you understand them at a smaller level and then start building up. The moment you start getting that technical ability to understand the beds, then you start now experimenting with a smaller number of beds that you can raise on your own. And then later on, you should be able to grow your own. Because I can assure you that if you do your own, starting from day out, you may be able to reduce the cost. But ultimately, remember, it is the cost at the point. Yes, it's at the point of where it reaches the point of lay.
Yeah.
But remember the 8 months. The 8 months that you've lost could have been the income that you could have been gaining if you had made a decision to buy the point of lay.
Okay.
And then also adding to that, because it's 8 months, which is close to about a year, if you take into account, for example, the cost of the money itself, if you are to lend out that money that you have actually ventured into this industry where you're not getting anything to someone else, you could have actually gotten more money. So this is where the decision of interest rate comes in, the decision of actually also time for you to wait until you start actually getting the eggs. This is where the decision has to be made. For those that wants to do smaller numbers, go for point of lay.
Okay.
For those that wants to do bigger numbers, you can do both, the point of lay and the day old. And then you should be able to know and be able to gauge at the end of the time when your chicks actually reaches the point of lay.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Chandra, the kind of trainings that you offer as an association, to me, that wanna be into poultry farming,
Yeah.
or even to your members, what type of training do you offer to them? Because probably others, what they have not gotten into is to be trained and know how to handle matters in poultry farming. Yeah, because last week or the other week when I featured Mr. Skazwe, I was puzzled to learn that the exotic birds, they are this and that and so on.
Oh yeah.
So now I come to the training. Since we are dealing with the layers, yes, what type of training do you offer as an association?
Layer trainings are not different from the broiler trainings that we offer.
Okay.
However, these are specifically because you have to take into account the vaccinations that are actually done. If you are keeping broilers, for example, Mr. Chileshe, you have 4 types of vaccinations. In fact, 2, but 4 in 4 doses. You have the Newcastle and the Gumboro at 10 to 12 days. Then you have to repeat the same process between 18 to 21. But with the layer, it has got this extensive vaccination procedures that starts from 8 days up to the time these chickens are actually about 16 weeks, depending on the variety on the breed that we actually just imported. So we do extensive trainings, specifically want to teach farmers on how to do vaccinations for those who are able to do vaccinations on their own. So they have the hands-on types of exposure to vaccinations, specifically, for example, if you want to do the pox vaccines. It's the pox vaccines that you can do even as a farmer, not trained by the university to be the vet. It's something that is very simple, so we do hands-on. Okay. Apart from that, there are other vaccinations that we also tell them this you cannot do because of the dangers. Because there are some of the vaccines that you have to do on the chest. There are some of the vaccines that you do on the legs, on the thighs. There are some of the vaccines that you do on the wings and so forth. So those are the types of exposure that we do. Apart from that, we also train farmers specifically on lighting. Lighting is very important in the sense that these are the chickens that really need time to rest. For example, if you start keeping the chickens at point of lay, each chicken that you buy from a reputable supplier should be able to come with the vaccination procedure, should be able to come with the feeding procedure, should be able to come with the lighting procedure. Yes. So it comes with the booklets that you should be able to follow. So for example, you have to switch off lights at maybe sometimes 20 hours, sometimes 21, sometimes 22 hours, depending on the age of the chicken. And you should be able to switch on the lights roughly about 05. So if you miss such vaccine, such lighting procedures, you discover that your chickens actually just react by not actually giving you an egg. Apart from that, we also teach them on the feeding procedure because each bird scientifically has been designed to eat certain quantities of feed for them to actually give you an egg. Should you make a mistake to overfeed them, they will grow very big and become very fat, and you suffer consequences as a farmer.
They can't give out eggs when
they cannot give you an egg that the quantities of eggs that you require, because some of them will start dying because of too much fat. Secondly, if you underfeed them also, they will also punish you as a farmer by not giving you an egg. They will be able to eat but no egg. So we do a comprehensive trainings, and much of it is free of charge and tailor-made. We also do on-farm trainings for those that are actually within our reach. We may be able to walk into the farm and be able to advise you and give you the trainings that are required.
Okay, thank you very much. To those that have just tuned in for the first time, we are coming to you live on the Poultry Farmer, just from PA's office. So today we are talking about the layers. That's what we are talking about. And we are focusing on why the layers. And my guest is the Director at the Poultry Association of Zambia, Mr. Dominic Chanda. Mr. Chanda,
Yes, sir.
let's now talk about the impact of on-feed formulation.
Okay.
Because I'm sure the feed is expensive, and the way I'm thinking, you are talking about no, keep them for 8 months. Now this feed buying and so on. So now let's talk about feed formulation.
Oh yeah, I think it's an issue that has been brewing, I think, in the social media for quite some time, where you see a lot of experts on the social media training people how to make feed and so forth and so forth. There are two sides of it, Mr. Chileshe. When you do your own feed formulation, you may be able to reduce the cost, of course, by a certain margin, depending on the inputs that you're using. To begin with, all the feed millers, those companies that are producing feed, they've got 3 types of feed for the layers.
Okay.
They have the supreme feed, they've got the standard feed, they also have what we call the concentrate. So the concentrate is what farmers are now using to make their own feed, because it comes with a formula that you might be able to add. For example, if you buy a 50 kg bag of concentrate, you add, depending on the supplier, the information they have put on the bag, you may be able to add roughly about maybe say 75 kg of number 3 meal. Then that will give you enough feed to actually feed your birds, and they should be able to produce at least at a minimum. What are the consequences of that? Is that we have not maybe make available this information to farmers.
Yes.
That the number 3 meal mostly is the meal that comes from Eastern Province.
Okay.
Yeah, we call it, I think in our language, we call it Gaga. And because it is Gaga, it is easily available, farmers are tempted actually to get it and add. As a result, they may not be able to reach the peak in terms of production. Why is that the case? Because a chicken that we are talking about, Mr. Chileshe, requires certain quantities of carbohydrates for them to actually be able to produce and to eat and produce the egg that we require. Apart from that, they also require certain quantities of proteins, certain quantities of vitamins. So in the concentrate, they've given you that formula to say, if you add 75 kg of number 3 meal, including maize meal, you may be able to produce up to about 90%.
Yes.
90% in terms of production. However, most of the farmers do not want to add maize. Why? Because it is very expensive.
Yeah.
And as a result, they use just number 3 meal, mix it with the concentrate and give the chickens. Resulting from that, you may discover that their production doesn't reach the maximum, and the only attack they have is that maybe I bought poor quality chicks. This is the reason why I cannot reach the maximum. Not until we reach an extent that we must be able to understand that 75% that has been told to us to add is actually maize, concentrate, maize grit. So if you cannot have the 100% in terms of maize grit, you may be able to add that number 3 meal, but make sure that from the 75 kg that you are required to add, 50 kg or 40 kg or 35 kg, let it be maize, and then the 40-45 kg be number 3 meal. For example, in Soweto right now, where we actually send a lot of people to go and buy, a 50 kg bag is actually costing roughly about almost 190 kwacha. There are a lot of hammer mills there that can actually pound your grain to sizable quantities that a chicken can be able to get. If you add that one to number 3 meal and add concentrate, you should be able to make a feed that is comparable to the commercial feed. And in that case, you'll be able to discover that your production can actually reach the maximum of about almost 95-96% in terms of egg production. However, should you make a mistake and not make the right quantities in terms of the components of the carbohydrates that are needed, your production might not be able to reach the maximum. So that is number 1 method under which farmers are actually using to make their own feed. The second method is where you now have to buy your own ingredients. For example, smaller components of vitamins, smaller components of number 3 meal, smaller components of soya cake, sunflower cake, and so forth. There are a number of companies that are actually producing and supplying and also giving this information free of charge. Livestock services, for example, do teach people how to make their own feed. And because of the same issue that I actually mentioned when you're using the concentrate, even those farmers that are actually making their own feed, using these small ingredients, they are also making a mistake because they cannot add the maize grit. and as a result, they cannot meet the required quantities by the chicken. Third issue is the issue of mixing. How do you ensure that, for example, if I'm making 1 ton of feed, ensure that the 15 kg of the micropack is properly mixed with 985 kgs of other products. There it becomes a bit of a challenge in the sense that you have to do a mixing thorough to make sure that each component of this feed, of this micronutrients that are important, is actually mixed properly. And as a result, we do also teach farmers that come into the show grounds, hands-on, to use the shovels to make sure that they do the mixing to the maximum. But you cannot compare something that has been mixed with hands compared to something that has been mixed with the machine.
Yes.
And this is where the issue comes in and the differences comes in with the commercial feed as well as the feed that is made by ourselves. But as I indicated, you may be able to reduce the feed cost by maybe roughly between 50 to 80 kwacha, depending on the sources of your ingredients. In some cases, your cost may be higher because you have not done the proper mathematics in terms of your feed mixing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chanda, our time is up. But under 2 minutes, available markets for eggs in Zambia from the farm.
Mr. Chileshe, this time around, actually farmers have got headaches in terms of demand, because the demand has actually shot up in the sense that every egg
which has made them to go high, or that the farmers or the farmers has taken advantage because there is a shortage.
It is not that. It is the forces of market, the forces of demand and supply. This time around, I think farmers have actually benefited from the demand that has actually been exhibited. For your own information, the devaluated currency has actually made the products in Zambia to be much cheaper.
Really?
And in fact, not even in Zambia, the whole Southern Africa is actually facing an upswing increases in the prices of the poultry products, including chickens, and also the egg. Why? Because the issue that we discussed some three weeks ago, the issue of actually COVID-19 creating an opportunity for this industry to actually benefit, because other sectors, other competing sectors are actually down. The only sector that is actually thriving is the poultry industry, and the only product which is cheaper for consumers to consume and buy is actually the egg and the chicken. So the demand is very high, and anyone who is actually producing chickens and egg right now, they're actually having headaches in terms of meeting the market.
Okay. Mr. Chanda, thank you very much for featuring on the program again.
Welcome, and we hope to meet next time.
This time around, I think we won't have these challenges that we've had.
I hope so.
And we are going to discuss more about that.
All right, thank you.
Well, viewers, that was today's discussion with Mr. Chanda, the director at the Poultry Association of Zambia. This is the poultry farmer. My name is Chileshe. On behalf of the entire Abn TV crew, and on behalf of my camera person, Pastor D here, we are saying goodbye and see you next Thursday with Mr. Chanda. Your friend?